Hey everybody, welcome to episode 61 of the Discussion 5. We're brought to you by, of course, the two of us, Brothers of Discussion, and the Hockey Podcast Network, which you heard the wonderful stylings of myself describe to you, all those wonderful shows. I do highly recommend checking out the hockeypodcastnetwork.com and HockeyPodNet if you are looking for some more hockey coverage. Seems like, Mike, we're all going to be doing a lot of the same show, so we've got a lot of the same in store for you as we talk about the return to play, why that sucks for your Detroit Red Wings, and of course, we're going to continue our theme here of redrafting as we try to learn, I guess the background on how difficult it is to actually draft in pro sports, because we keep seeing week after week so many boneheaded moves, even in the top 10 of every draft. But, Mike, as you and I saw, they might change, because this is one hell of a draft year, 2003. But we'll get into that a little bit later. What we want to do is remind you where you can find the Brothers of Discussion and the Discussion 5. Let's start myself at Clinkman on Twitter. My brother is Michael_Clink. You can find the show Twitter account at BOD Hockey. If you want to check out more Brothers of Discussion, go to bodpodcast.com and brothersofdiscussion.com, where you can follow along on all of our wrestling coverage as well, which can be found on Twitter at BOD Podcast. And you can find a joint Instagram account of both Red Wings hockey and pro wrestling at brothers_of_discussion. You can follow along on IGTV for all of our episodes and the videos playing out now, and a joint YouTube account that we greatly appreciate a subscribe. Right now we're at 11 subscribers, so let's get that number up. It'll be pretty sad, Mike, if somebody goes to subscribe and they see like 9 subscribers and they're like, oh wow, they lost 2. Oh boy. But we're going to try and kick those up. We're starting to make some friends. Greatly appreciate anybody out there that can share us and try and bring in some more friends. But that hub, again, is bodpodcast.com, brothersofdiscussion.com. Mike, let us talk the return to play. I'm scrolling down on my notes here, so it's a bit of a hesitation. Well, first, let's introduce podcast guest Steve Yzerman. He's here. Yay!
Hey!
You know what I wanted to do? I just wanted to show to the world that it is possible to use your green screen and to have a background and not have like a bubble pop up over your head. So I'm using the same exact background that Steve uses. I added, of course, the Discussion 5 and Brothers of Discussion logos. We had to block out the Myers that are that are on there.
Steve Yzerman?
Huh?
Is that Steve?
Yeah, it's either Steve or...
I thought it was a young Wilford Brimley.
It's either Steve, young Wilford Brimley, or Joe Exotic. I can't...
It definitely looks like it looks like Yzerman after this past season. That's what his face just looks like until we get back to work here.
Well, we did get to see a pretty docile Steve this past week talking about return to play and everything that affects the Red Wings. And what I took from that, Mike, was that was a complete waste of Steve Yzerman's time. He has a 45-minute press conference, I guess, Zoom meeting, that we didn't get a lot from. A lot of Steve just going, well, I wasn't really a part of those decisions. We'll see. Those are some of the answers that we got. We don't know yet. We'll update you guys as we learn. A lot of answers like that. But like I said,
he didn't get to make one decision.
Mm-hmm.
He is bringing back head coach Jeff Blashill. Woo!
Oh, good call. I'm glad you brought that up because that is a hot topic on Detroit Red Wings Twitter.
Yeah, in local Detroit sports, you got your Pat Caputo say, is this really a good move? I mean, this is a bad Red Wings team. Coach Jeff Blashill is bad. But anyway, Matt, 2 very important things. One, we were right all along. We blame the players.
Yeah.
No, Scotty Bowman couldn't have won with these guys. So, boom. That's a great victory for us. Victory number 2, you get another season of Who's That Pokemon? Yeah, that's my favorite gimmick on this show. Where Jeff Blashill puts a little positive spin on things. So
heading on over to Gimmick Street.
Yeah, he probably fired up the old Brothers of Discussion 5, and he's like, I'm coming back, boys. Got another season of material. But yeah, there's no reason to fire Jeff. This is a terrible team. We all know this is Steve's. This is going to be you, bud. It doesn't matter who you put in that coaching seat. You got to get some players in here.
Let's pull back the curtain a little bit. Like, does this mean that Jeff Blashill is going to be coaching in January? No! There could be somebody that gets fired that the Red Wings decide it's time to pick up. If we're waiting for the Tampa Bay Lightning to make a coaching decision, then why would we put Jeff in the situation? Like, Steve's not going to come out and go, we're keeping him now, but I mean, if somebody else comes up, we're going to take him. Or fire him and nothing happens that can help us make our situation better. I think there's so many things right about what Steve Yzerman did. Not forgetting the fact that no coach is going to win with this team. Right. But you fire Jeff Blashill as this team starts to get better. We're not at that point. We're not the team that is like a step or two away from becoming a playoff team. We are so many steps. We're
not a player away.
Yeah.
Right. We're a first and second line, and then maybe a top 4 defenseman, and then another top 4 defenseman, and then another, and then the rest of the top 4. Like one quick thing too. With Yzerman's word choice, he didn't say this, but since Red Wings aren't going to play again until January, it would be kind of cute. We'll reassess Jeff Blashill in 2021. Like, wait a minute, that's when the Red Wings are playing their first new game.
Well, I just what gets thrown out on social media so much is like line changes from Jeff. What you can't forget is that Jeff doesn't make the decision on who gets called up and called down. So a lot of people are complaining about that. Not Jeff Blashill's decision. If you're mad about that, guess who you got to be mad at? That guy.
Wilford Brimley.
Yeah, we're not mad at him yet though. So cut it out. But the line change thing is insane to me because I'd have to throw a shout out to another Red Wings podcast. So I'm not going to say I did this research, but it was Wings for Breakfast provided by The Athletic. I highly recommend you don't subscribe to that. Stay subscribed to this because we'll repeat all of their research.
Information's always better secondhand. Go ahead.
The line flipping that they did the research on and the statistics, every coach does the same amount of line changes. Like they went through like weeks of play to figure out like what is Jeff Blashill doing that's so different from every other coach? Nothing. So the complaining about this line changing is just people trying to pinpoint, like they watch the games, they see that a line has changed or that players are getting moved around between lines, and then they just put a pin in that and they go, that's it. That's the thing. When in reality, the line flipping happens, the line shuffling, because there's no talent on this team. Jeff is trying, like, think about the difference it would mean if he just sat there and was like, no, just keep rolling them out. Like, this is a guy that's putting in effort to try and find a solution. And to put that down for, like, one of the worst teams in NHL history is just mind-boggling. This is a guy that has been given such a dog crap basket of eggs to create an omelet. I just, you got to keep cracking them to find that one egg that you could put that 3-egg omelet together, because it's just, right now, it's rotten and spoiled and it stinks. And I don't want to eat that omelet.
Sometimes when you're getting out of cleaning the litter box, do you put the turds, at the bottom of the litter? Do you put them on the top? Do you put them in one of the corners? It doesn't matter. There's still cat turds in the litter box. So it doesn't matter how you arrange them. They're still going to be peppered in. There's nothing he can do. He needs the GM to sift those turds out.
Yeah.
Put some gold in.
I was going to say, Mike, I don't think you're using your litter box right. You're just moving turds around. There, the cat can poop right there.
You can put a little treasure in there. Yeah, instead of
You're supposed to clean it out. Yeah. But no, I'm thrilled that you brought that up, because for whatever reason that didn't make it into my notes. But yeah, Jeff's sticking around. Guys, calm your shit, because Jeff's going to go when the timing's right. This is not like Steve's saying, like, no, we're doubling down. if we're gonna win a Stanley Cup, it's with Jeff Blashill. No, we're not gonna win a Stanley Cup next year. So just douse your shorts because they're on fire right now. They don't need to be.
No.
All right.
Yeah, so I think we approve of this move. So,
we approve of that message that Jeff is sticking around. Again,
approve the move. Yeah.
Like, what company out there, like, we all know that I lost my job. But when I was getting broomed out and I was getting these emails where I was starting to see it and they were telling me, like, oh, Matt, blah, blah, blah. But then, the subtext is like, you're not coming to this meeting. That's very important because you're going to be fired in a couple of weeks because of COVID or what have you, budgetary reasons. Steve and any other company is not going to come out and start saying that and telling Jeff that he should start looking for his next. Jeff knows that he's not doing a fantastic job. But Steve also knows it would be a terrible business decision to start hinting at the fact that changes are coming for guys that he might need to start game planning and preparing for training camp. Not, of course, the one coming up in July, but the one coming up in December. Just so confusing why people are so upset about this. All right, so why are we talking about hockey and training camp starting in December? It's because the return to play, Mike. If the players agree to return to play, this is what'll happen. So all we got this past week was the layout of what the NHL proposed to the NHL Players Association, and the Players Association agreed that, yes, we will do this, but we aren't necessarily returning to play. But if we do return to play, this is what we will do. So they're going to do the 2014 playoff, which does not include the Detroit Red Wings.
We was robbed.
A round of 5 games between what do we have? We have the 5 through 12 in either conference going at it, and whoever wins those 5 games moves and will be seeded as a 1 through 8 team in the conference. Those first 2 rounds in that playoffs will be potentially 5 games each. And what's so funny is what was referenced there was like, well, we don't want the guys to be playing 7 games. It'll be safer that way if they play 5 instead of 7. And I was just like, no, safest thing, 0 games. But here we are. Now
it's weird that they want to jump into a 5-game series, and I know that they're trying to, finish this so that we have time to get started on next season, which hypothetically is going to be the full 82 and 7 round, 7 game round, 7 game round, 7 game round. But even best case scenario, we talk about ring rust, for in wrestling, the Undertaker, Edge, these guys who don't wrestle, Jesus, what are they going to look like when they haven't been wrestling, for this extended amount of time? None of these guys have been on skates. Yeah. So it just feels critically important that we get these guys on the ice doing something before we're doing, games that are going to potentially decide, the Lord Stanley Cup. So it looks like it's a little bit down the notes here, but I don't know if I'd be jumping into a 5-game series. It's almost like the first couple games of that series are going to be garbage anyway. So we should probably do 7 just so these guys can, get the rust knocked off and, get them at a playoff level performance. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know how to think about it because, again, if you're going to jump back into play, we don't want to add more. The thing I hate most is preseason for every sport and how long it is, because all we're doing is putting guys in, we're risking with games that are meaningless, their health. So do we risk their health in a meaningless game? Do we risk their health? And it's just, that's tough because they're doing a job, right? That has more risk than what our jobs entail. I'm risk-free right now, besides the times that, my paintings have fallen off the wall and I got smacked around by them in the head. Most of the time, this is a risk-free job, just sitting here in front of a camera. So they do have to take on some risk, regardless of the corona or COVID aspects of it that you want to talk about. I just at this point let's just do some meaningful games. They're gonna get hurt. It's gonna happen. I don't know if there is a good solution. Right?
If Matt, what do we do if Barclay Goodrow gets hurt? Or let's say he catches COVID. Nothing. What do we do if Nikita Kucherov gets COVID, Matt? What do we do then?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Do we just shut down the Lightning? Or do we shut down, both teams that were, the two teams playing each other?
Yeah, and
that was just pause for 2 weeks?
That was the question we asked last week was, and we brought it up because of what happened in Germany and their soccer league running. So it's not something that I believe that they're going. I think the Nikita Kucherov thing. You know what's funny? I think they'd keep it going if it was Sidney Crosby. I think then they'd no, we're gonna pause the league. We need Sidney Crosby in here. I don't know if Nikita Kucherov rolls off anybody's tongue who is a casual NHL observer, where Sidney Crosby transcends the NHL. And
I disagree. Listen to this, Nikita Kucherov.
Yeah, but you have a podcast. You have a podcast about hockey. You don't count as a casual.
I know, but
observer.
Kucherov carried a couple fantasy teams for me. I really like him.
I agree. Nobody's making the argument that he's a bad hockey player. I'm saying that the way the NHL sells itself, I have never seen a commercial with Nikita Kucherov in it. But we all have seen Sidney Crosby.
My beef is that we've done this 3 episodes in a row where the NHL is all right, we figured it out. We're going to do 24-team playoff thing. And then maybe some games beforehand to get everybody ready to go.
Okay.
And it's we've done that same announcement 3 times. But we still haven't figured out the contingency plan for if, a player gets sick. And more importantly, if a good player gets sick. And even more importantly, if one of our faces of the league gets sick. What are you going to do?
So what I was going to say was that they do have, part of the proposal included these contingency plans. And it does include, shutting down again, quarantines for the specific players, extra testing for the teams that do have a player that tests positive. Part of the issue was when they first said they were looking on returning to play was they weren't going to put the rest of the country or the continent. They weren't just going to take tests that they don't deserve just to play a game. But it looks like they're going to be putting these players through thousands. When it comes down to it, you do the calculation. It's going to be literally thousands of tests that could be going around the country, but instead we're going to do them before and after every game for all of these players, all the team's personnel. Just so that we can be on TV. But yeah, they say they're doing enough. You and I, we both know, as the official statement from the Brothers of Discussion and the Discussion 5, nobody's doing enough. They're just trying to get on TV to make money. And I'm looking directly into the camera to make sure I say that. And everybody knows where we stand. But what stinks is that this is going to happen regardless of us saying this. Possibly. I mean, maybe the players are on board with us and they're also going to not approve this. And then it's never going to be a thing. I think that's what they're waiting for. When we say this is approved, if they do come back and play, the reason it's not is because the players still don't have a good solution for how am I going to see my family? What happens when I get sick? What happens when my family gets sick? What happens when somebody my family knows gets sick? Are you guys going to quarantine us because we may have seen them a week before? What do you do to get into training camp? What if I had seen somebody that had been sick and now I'm coming into training camp for a couple weeks? It's just, you're going to have to keep track and spreadsheet out all the people that you've seen 2 weeks before you go into training camp. That's what you'd have to do, right? You'd have to tell these guys you're quarantining 2 weeks before you go into training camp. Is that fair for a human being. I guess you could make the argument, yeah, if they're getting paid millions of dollars to play a game. But if they don't feel that way or they don't see it that way, and the majority of the NHL players and the association don't agree, then we just won't see the NHL. And even everything I'm listing, it's supposed to sound insane, like who would actually go that length. Because one, the NHL is not going to go that length. And two, you probably have to go further than that. And even through my exaggeration, you have to go further than that to ensure that this is the safest way to come back. And it just won't happen. So it's unsafe, and it's going to probably happen regardless.
Well, Matt, we got some more heartbreaking news here. The lottery, which I think when that reaction shot of Steve behind you, if you want to move to your side real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks like the face when he learned how the lottery is going to work this year. So, we heard a proposal that it sounded like we were almost guaranteed the first or second pick. And now it sounds like there's a much higher likelihood of us dropping down the draft. Matt, what were those details about what they're going to do now with the latest proposal for return?
Well, it is. It's pretty funny too, because it does take you do need a minute to digest. And I liked a few podcasts I listened to and articles I read are like, why are we saying that this is so confusing? Well, because you do actually have to pause for a second before you start just running through this stuff. But so the draft is going to be what it was going to be before any of this happened. The Red Wings are at 18.5% for phase 1 of the draft lottery. So there's 2 phases because it's possible, since they're doing the draft lottery before all of these teams are set, because they're going to do the draft lottery to give the shitty teams some content to talk about. They're going to do the draft lottery before the play-in games are played, before we have a result. So that means the play-in teams have a shot at winning the first pick.
Woo-wee!
All right, so here's part 2. Since the the chances of winning pick 1, 2, and 3 are going to stay the same, and those are the we'll go through those picks. If a play-in team, not knowing who they are, wins pick 1, 2, or 3, they're going to do phase 2 of the draft lottery later on. I can't remember if that was TBA, if they have a date decided for that. It probably doesn't matter. They're going to do a phase 2 where every team who has a remaining lottery pick will get a 12.5% chance at winning that pick. So, essentially, in this phase 2, you have no benefit and there's no parity to being a shitty team besides the fact that you're still in the draft lottery. That all goes out the window. So, if just one pick goes to one of these play-in teams, it could be all 3, then they're going to do a redraft lottery, but every team will have the same chance of winning those picks.
God, what a nightmare.
And they'll only do it if, let's say the Red Wings get number 1, we're locked in. We have number 1. We don't have to worry about phase 2 at all, because our sole lottery pick will be gone.
Right.
It'll be locked into number 1. Same for number 2 and number 3. They're not gonna redo all 3 picks. They're gonna do the ones that go to the play-in teams. So our best hope right now is that we get 1, 2, or 3, and of course that means if we don't get 1, 2, or 3, we'll be at number 4, because then they'll redo the rest of the picks in order. So the only benefit the Red Wings have is that we won't fall past number 4, which is the same situation we were in before. It just kind of, when you're looking at this and you go through a season like we just saw, and we're going to talk about drafts going forward, Mike. We're at 2003, so we're at the first time the Pittsburgh Penguins get to benefit from, picking high, which resulted in them becoming one of the top franchises the last 15, 20 years. They draft Fleury, he goes over to the Golden Knights, but then Crosby and Malkin coming in consecutive years as well. So that's just not a thing anymore. And it becomes less of a thing when you see this phase 2 of the draft and the league kind of doubling down from going in one direction where the Red Wings, who are one of the worst teams in NHL history this past season, God forbid they get a first or second pick, to going in a complete opposite direction where if we don't lock in 1, 2, or 3, and one of these teams that has a chance at winning the Stanley Cup wins a 1, 2, or 3 pick, then we're just all thrown into a bucket, and it's, whose name gets picked out of the hat. I just, God, to me, it really feels like after the entire NHL complained about the worst team and one of the worst teams in NHL history getting a shot at the 1 or 2 pick, like how bad they fought against that, or how strongly they felt that should not happen. They really went in the other direction and really just flipped it and went, all right, well, fuck them then. I'm not a fan of it, but Mike, this continues because we said, why does this entire plan suck for the Red Wings? Well, it also sucks because the last hockey we saw was at the beginning of March, and we're probably not going to see hockey again in Detroit until January. So we're almost going to go an entire year without seeing Red Wings hockey. And it feels like, Mike, if you're a fan of Rick and Morty, God, more of the same, You can't just get regular Rick and Morty when you're supposed to get Rick and Morty. You got to go years at a time. So instead of us just going a few months without hockey, we're almost going to go an entire year. And what sucks about that, Mike, is selfishly we don't get Red Wings hockey. But also, one of the things that's being missed, if you follow hockey Twitter, you're not missing this. But, think about all the games that Moritz Seider could benefit from right now, getting some play. Even if the Red Wings came back and got like this little round robin to, maybe, I don't want to lose our draft pick, but but if they came back and just, these teams could schedule some time for these players to like get to know each other and bounce around a bit. Sure, that's unsafe. So maybe that's why we don't do it. Don't put these players at risk just so that, Moritz Seider can get some play time. But, if this COVID thing never happened is kind of how we want to look at this. We miss out on those opportunities for those players to get NHL ready. Especially, Moritz Seider's one way to start talking about that, where we're like, man, he had such a great AHL season. How are we going to keep him down again? So I guess the argument I'm making here is that Moritz Seider is probably guaranteed to get a good shot at the NHL. But what about Joe Veleno? We don't know where he's going to fall. But that's a guy who, as the season progressed, he got better and better with the Griffins, where he started out very piss poor and worked his way up to just poor. We'd love to see him work his way up to okay. And, I'll probably get thrown under the bus with that opinion, but, I'm not one to get too excited about a fourth liner. So could he go up to third line or second line? We won't get to see that progress now.
Well, I think you're touching on something super important. The Red Wings having god-awful luck in these lotteries. It feels like we drop every time we're in it. And now my confidence is really shook about us doing well in this lottery. So what the Red Wings have been doing is trying to get multiple, extra picks every year. But the only way you really get the value of accumulating all this young talent is for them to develop. And for us to have to wait till January, that means we still have these young guys, waiting in the wings, like the Velenos, like the Mo Seiders.
No pun intended, right?
They're just not developing. So, they're young, but they're not getting an opportunity to be on the ice and improve. It almost makes me feel like, you want to have kind of almost like a losers tournament where I don't know if we want to put draft slotting on the line, but, something for, the fans of these other teams, to get something, to kind of, be that little Leopold Stach, like the Leopold Stach tournament where you get a little void filler, just something. So Red Wings and Red Wings prospects aren't waiting, basically 10 months between games. It's really kind of a bummer.
Yeah, you know what? The best way to look at that too is the people who love the Grand Rapids Griffins and their life is devoted to it. Um, Man, I'm sorry for what I'm about to say, but goddamn, if that isn't every AHL game to me, I
You
don't
know,
need to win. I don't need to win the Calder Cup. I just need these guys to start playing. So if we're talking about games that mean nothing, it's the same thing as having them roll through some AHL games.
you know,
Because
you and I don't think we have quite this amount of informational depth as far as how these players' contracts work. Because one thing the NHL compared to other sports, it's easily, to me, the most international of all the other sports, like how it plucks people from other countries to come play in the United States and Canada.
mm-hmm.
I just wonder if the way the labor works, if the Red Wings could be proactive and take the initiative and be like, hey, it's going to be almost 10 months till we actually play something of merit. So maybe we should try to get together and do something a little bit organized here to kind of build some camaraderie and, kind of help develop and, bump into each other kind of thing. Something a little bit like the Detroit Lions would do, where you could just have practice, but what they would do is invite, I believe they did the Patriots. I want to say they did the Texans. They would invite them over to Allen Park and they would, have team versus team practices. I wonder if you could do something like that, because it's such a long time.
Well, I think
you're not just missing that opportunity to, improve.
Well, it's going to need league approval. The board of governors are going to have to say yes to this, and I think it comes down to what is the PR shitstorm that's going to come after that when the NHL goes, yeah, we're just going to have games, nobody can watch it, it's just two teams getting together, because what I believe it was the Buffalo Sabres were asking about some opportunities to play games over the next few months. God, I don't. Or no, it was the LA Kings. So the LA Kings were actually already asking for this, and they got a big no. So it's something that these NHL teams, and Steve Yzerman mentioned it too on his 45-minute Zoom meeting. It's going to be a long time, and it's a huge bummer to miss out on that stuff. But man, I hope nobody can hear my neighbor who's mowing his lawn for the third time this week. Jesus, there he goes.
See, I rent, so I just had my landlord come over, and he did all the edging and mowing, and I actually got a pretty good landlord. Shout out to Mark and Christina. He said, grass got pretty long. We do this every 2 weeks. If you want me to come next weekend, just shoot me an email. So
wow.
Yeah, thanks, Mark and Christina.
My wife and I, we pay for a service, and the guy comes once a week, but every now and then he's like, I'm going to take a vacation. Does he tell us? No. Anyway, Mike,
is it really a vacation if I have to tell you about it? Well, speaking of mowing the lawn, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to transition right into the only lawnmower I use. It's the Lawnmower 3.0 from Manscaped. That's right. The Lawnmower 3.0. Mike, I don't know about you, but I'm keeping those curlies high and tight. They're not even curly anymore. You gotta give yourself some space. It's getting really hot out there. It's kind of chilly today in the Metro Detroit area, but man, I've been out gardening the last week, and being out there in 80-degree heat, I'm thrilled that I don't have to worry about my Brillo pad heating things up down there.
Oh my God, I needed that ball deodorizer like a mother. Let me tell you.
Yeah,
I'm really glad I had that. Yeah.
Thankfully, social distancing is ensuring that we don't need too much ball deodorizer, but if you don't want to smell yourself, that's the reason to keep using it. But anyway, Mike, this is the electric trimmer we've been talking about for weeks. Manscaped spent 18 months redoing the Lawnmower 2.0 to give us the 3.0 that features the cutting-edge ceramic blade, advanced skin-safe technology. You're going to be nick-free. And, Mike, when we together as a team tell everybody that this is premium, I'm considering using this thing on my face, honestly. You've got the LED light that's going to shine where the sun don't reach. That's right. I'm making up my own phrases. You've got the 7,000 RPM motor with the quiet stroke technology. Everything involved in that area that involves a quiet stroke, I'm a big fan of. And let's not forget about that wonderful charging stand. Number one, you're going to keep that thing ready to go whenever you need it. You're going to have it ready to go for up to 90 minutes. Number two, you get to show off that you have that great trimmer, so anybody coming over is like, man, that guy's got a nice tight Brillo pad. He doesn't even have a Brillo pad. But, folks, if you want to try out that Lawnmower 3.0, if you want to cut down your pubis 3 times a week like my neighbor, God, I hope he's not watching the show. I know his son knows that this show exists. If you
I don't know. I
want 20%
think the
off,
timing of him mowing the lawn is a little suspicious. I almost think he's a plant where you're like,
is a
all
reminder.
right,
Hey, guys.
segue.
If you want 20% off and free shipping on your Lawnmower 3.0, go to manscaped.com and use code THPN, of course, in reference to the Hockey Podcast Network. Use code THPN and get 20% off your Lawnmower 3.0 and free shipping. Mike, it is now time for us. Actually, I usually I should pause a little bit more after that. It is now time for us to jump into the 2003 NHL Draft, as we have done for weeks now. We're trying to redraft to learn a little bit more about the NHL, learn a little bit more about these drafts and how important it is for the Red Wings to get that first pick, or at least to just draft a couple of guys that'll work out, because it seems to mean the world to some of these teams. Mike, I'm going to start off first by dubbing this the year that we built the West Coast. And this just shows how important it is to get at least a couple guys. Land on at least 2. But the Anaheim Ducks, Mike, I'll tease this here. They're going to be our scouting department winners, because in a couple first-round picks, they put together 2 guys that are going to help them win a Stanley Cup and pretty much make this team, except for the last couple of years, but make them a viable Cup contender, an easy playoff contender year after year. And that's Ryan Getzlaf and Corey Perry. Just insane that these guys go in the same draft to the same team in the same round. And that's where these guys aren't getting a first pick to pick these guys up. So this is really, your scouting department is getting this win, Anaheim Ducks, because of you land 2 franchise players, and to think that the Ducks come into this off the J.S. Shigear Stanley Cup run. You get the playoff MVP is the guy who doesn't even win the cup, so the Devils win the cup. But like we talked last week, was 2002 the best year for the Detroit Red Wings? They put together that monster team. They probably make a ton marketing wise. They create Red Wings fans for generations to come, and the Stanley Cup, but they also had one of the best drafts that would help them create the team that was going to win the 2008 Stanley Cup. This, Mike, 2003, the Ducks start to build their fan base with Jaguar having that amazing cup run. And then right after that, they start setting up their team with the draft of Getzlaf and Perry. That's probably going to be one of the reasons they win the cup in 2007. So, do they have as good a draft in 2007? No. But this 2003 draft, coupled with the fact that this was like that boom for the Ducks, and they're going to be transitioning out of the Mighty Ducks soon, this really could be, as we go back-to-back years, 2002 is definitely one of the best years for the Detroit Red Wings. Obviously because of the Stanley Cup, but it ranks higher than 97 and 98 because of how many guys they drafted that seemed to change the future of the franchise. But then for the Ducks, same thing. I don't know. Let me continue my list here, because we also get Joe Pavelski, Jeff Carter, Brent Burns, Dustin Brown. I kind of mix those guys up. You want to focus on Jeff Carter and Dustin Brown with the Kings, Joe Pavelski, Brent Burns for the Sharks. This really did build the West Coast, this draft.
Yeah, I mean, good Lord. This was a stacked draft. I mean, we had a couple years here where, since we've been doing this project, where it's like, man, hopefully you hit a home run with the first or second pick, because after that, it was just a bag of diarrhea.
Yeah.
You could, to say, like, to do those numbers again, Matt, we had 25 guys play 800-plus motherfucking games. 14 guys playing 1,000-plus games. you almost you have to have a dedicated effort to fuck up this draft. Like there was so many good players available. I mean, like, I guess, medical advances are starting to keep some of these guys who, might have been out of the game with like a twisted ankle. They would have been playing 200 games or 300 games. We're just getting so much better at scouting talent, developing talent. We might have to retire one of our categories here. My favorite, the Yuri Depita, where we
I saw that,
with the oldest guy in the draft. But yeah, it's such a solid year for Anaheim. San Jose builds their, you don't want to call it, I don't know if legacy is such a strong word, but I mean, they were in the playoffs, not quite at the Red Wings level of 20 years in a row, 20 plus. But you had, like a 12-year run here where the Sharks playoffs, where it was just, that kind of level of consistency with a strong roster.
Yeah.
Like years past, it felt like, this year was this was such a great draft. But, I think part of the problem too, when we talk about, why are we even drafting guys who are 30 years old? It's like some of these drafts, there just wasn't any talent. So after like 2, 3, 4, 5, you're really, kind of going through with a fine-tooth comb to find somebody. But like the oldest player in this draft, Matt, we're going to go ahead and jump right into the categories here. The Yuri Depita, he was only 26. Issa Piernes played 56 games. Not anything meaningful, but, he's 26, where previous years we had guys who were already in their 30s. This year we had a guy of merit, Jan Heda, played 627 games. And we had 135 playoff games.
Yeah.
Pretty solid. I don't know if you can really be upset about that, Matt. It's just we're starting to figure it out. I don't think it's an accident that this boon is starting to happen as medical advances are getting there, and we can fix ACLs, we can fix MCLs, ankle surgeries are not that big a deal. We can get you, back on the ice the same season. You don't have to cut short your career.
Right.
You're going to get paid too, because we're going to be able to fix your body. So that's part of the reason we see these monster like amount of good players, and they're available all the way through the first round. We got guys in the second round, third round, and then we still have, Matt, one of your favorites, the Datsuk Diamond in the Rough.
Am I taking that
and that
one?
player?
All right.
I know you love Datsuk. I kind of did the little profile on him, but it was Joe Pavelski.
Yeah.
Good God. Incredible consistency from this guy, Matt. Our Datsuk Diamond in the Rough winner, 8 seasons of at least 60 points. So sometimes we got to, kind of make some, take some liberties here to get, a player in that spot. Maybe it's just somebody drafted in the 200s who's pretty good. But 8 seasons of at least 60 points. He got 100 playoff points in his career. He's part of that Shark stretch with 12 straight playoffs. We're also big fans of guys who actually, can play every single game. He had 6 years where he played the full 82. Good stuff. And 1 lazy year where he only played 81. What a bum. But I mean, 7 years of consistency there out of 12. And then he did play for that Sharks team that lost to the goddamn Penguins, in 2016. But, man, incredible career for Pavelski and a guy drafted at 205. So, props to Joe. Matt, I know the category you created here, the Good Boy Award. You want to jump into that one for us?
Yeah, and I like giving out this award because, again, it's just like the Pavel Datsuk Award. That's where you kind of look at a guy who is successful because it's very easy for dog crap to stick around on one team. Because who else is going to take him? Take a cheap contract. You're like, I'll give you the hometown discount. But this is about somebody that could easily fetch some dough in the market, free agency market, but they stick around. And I really like bringing this back to Pavel Datsyuk because it's Patrice Bergeron who, over his career, is probably second only to Pavel Datsyuk in regards to being a two-way forward. And to me, I get it when you love your high-scoring guys. Like, that's how you sell the sport. That's how those guys get ranked and end up in the top 100 greatest players of all time. But this is a guy I think with Pavel Datsyuk should be in those conversations where it's unbelievable to me that Datsyuk isn't in the top 100 greatest players of all time. But Bergeron definitely should be in that conversation, especially with the points he's been putting up the last few years. But he's always in the Selke conversation, and he's a guy that you fear. He's a guy that you don't want on the ice when you have your top line out there because it's going to be so hard for them to put even a puck on the net. But you get your cup. And then on top of that, I think right now he's sitting at 869 points over his career. Obviously, he's going to come out of this draft as one of the top forwards picked up. But with a few more points is Ryan Getzlaf, who also is a guy who could venture around the NHL, but he's stuck around with the Ducks. Maybe at this point, he's already got a Stanley Cup, so he's not in that boat of like Joe Thornton. Why is he still sticking around with the Sharks when he could go get a better situation? Or why are the Sharks holding on to him and not trading him? This is Ryan Getzlaf, who already won his cup with the Ducks. So he's going to be that career guy, captain for the Ducks. I actually couldn't tell you right now if he's still captain. But 965 points. Sticking with that same team. Again, two guys that could fetch a ton of dough on the free agency market and really tip the scale in regards to what the top contract is. And they chose to stick around. And famously for the Boston Bruins, have some of the best players in the NHL and don't have like the same cap issues that we saw out of the Detroit Red Wings, the Chicago Blackhawks, the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Bruins just keep sticking around, and they finished this season as the top team in the NHL thanks to Patrice Bergeron, and they continue to be Stanley Cup contenders. So draft a guy in 2003, and now he's a Selke every year and easily could be in the Hart conversation if that award ever changes to stop being the guy who earns the most points for the year.
Good Lord, how many times did he win the Selke? Is that 4?
Yeah.
Good God.
And then we got the old Red Wings, Mike. It's hard to say how to feel about this draft because you could say, at this point we love. Do we love? All right. Well, we got some good feelings from Jimmy Howard every now and then. And that's who we drafted this year at 64, the first pick the Red Wings took. And he's 19 when he's drafted. He does not end up being, he's nowhere near being the best goalie, but he does end up with the second most amount of games played for a team. Corey Crawford was taken ahead of him, so that's not an option. Marc-Andre Fleury ends up being the first pick that we'll get into later for the Penguins. But Yaroslav Halak is a guy that comes to mind where he could have easily won the Pavel Datsyuk award, at least for falling so far in the draft and having a pretty good career. Almost making a tough situation for the Canadians where they're going to go with Halak or Carey Price. And pretty crazy that the Canadians draft Carey Price and then Yaroslav Halak ends up being a part of their, just some great scouting in regards to picking up goaltenders. You don't have to try too hard to pick up Carey Price, but you did have to try pretty hard to pick up Yaroslav Halak. And, good on the Canadians making that pick. But Jimmy Howard is that'll be the draft pick of note. The other one is Kyle Quincy, who stuck around long enough to become, one of the hated defensemen on, once we started to take our dip, it always comes back to that conversation of being the hero and being a hero so long that you become the villain, something we learned in The Dark Knight back in 2008. But that's kind of what happened with Kyle Quincy's career. Not a terrible career, especially for where he was drafted at, but you can understand why Wings fans got upset at him. Turnovers.
It was just weird because we drafted him. He was our baby. He was part of that, Red Wing process. He and Jimmy Howard were, drafted in 2003. Kyle didn't hit the ice for the Wings until the 05-06 season, kind of similar to Jimmy, where he was just, hanging out in the minors. And then it's like the Red Wings just got frustrated and said, he's only going to play a couple games for us. Let's trade him. And then they traded a first-round pick to get him back. And then, he'd had a couple decent seasons, in LA and Colorado, not blowing the world up, but, you could shoot pucks off him. He had some blocks, but he wasn't like a point man. So he was, kind of more of a defensive defenseman, and Red Wings brought him back, and they got one okay season out of him where he played 82 games, but I think it's almost like they were more upset that we drafted him, didn't get more out of him initially, gave up on him, and then traded a huge draft asset for him, and it didn't really pan out. Like he didn't really set the world on fire. He was kind of a quiet defensive defenseman, and I think that's why he doesn't quite get the love that he could have.
That's trusting your scouting department too much to go back so many years and go, this is our best option. But you know what? We've talked about it before. Sometimes those trades, and it's too bad that Kyle Quincy becomes the reason that it is a failure, and then we get mad at him. But sometimes those trades happen just because there's so much pressure in the NHL to make those draft the trade deadline trades and to do your upgrade. And we had the years where the Red Wings would say, well, this guy's coming back from injury, and then the paper the next day is like, what the hell, there's so many guys available, why are we waiting for a guy to come back from injury? But yeah, I think it's a guy that noticeably when he was on our team would create problems where you would ask, is there a replacement player that could be here that wouldn't be creating these issues? And that sort of becomes for every team that's not a Stanley Cup contender.
Or you have to give up that kind of draft capital. Ugh.
I'm sorry?
Or you have to give up that kind of draft capital to reacquire him.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like that with the pressures of the media and the fans to make those moves, sometimes that's why that happens and becomes an issue, or you put yourself in this position where you absolutely need a defenseman. Somebody better gets traded, and then you're stuck with what's left, and you've already said, I'm willing to get rid of a first-round pick. There's so many variables, but it just didn't work out with Kyle and the Red Wings, and walking away with happy faces. But Mike, did we miss anything? Is there anything else?
Yeah, the only other thing I would touch on is, we talked about this draft, helping to build the West. The Ducks and the Sharks being the big examples of that, but woo boy, there's also some scouting department losers. I'm looking at you, Phoenix. I think, are we going by Arizona or Phoenix this season? I don't know. But man, out of this draft, they got. You ready for this?
Yep.
Exactly 0 NHL games played. 0 NHL games played. Now, you want to kind of backtrack a little bit because they're not drafting in the first round, and that's usually a spot where you can pluck somebody. That's what Ottawa did. Who they got like Patrick Eaves with their first rounder, and their last pick was Brian Elliott, who's he's a pretty solid goalie. So they kind of stunk too this year. Like 7 donuts in between Patrick Eaves and Elliott. But
yeah.
I mean, you got 2 players. You can't be too upset. But Phoenix gets 0 man games. So what happened with their first rounder? It's when they picked up Damon Lankow. He's a solid dude. They only got 3 seasons out of that trade. One year in the playoffs. But it's just, I think this starts to like we're talking about, like medical expertise starts to get better. So we're not having guys, with like those lingering injuries, we can fix them. And that's how we're able to get, so many players playing 800, 900, 1,000 games.
Yeah.
This is also the year where we start to see less of that. Let's just give up a first round pick. Because because Linkow, while he was okay, I mean, you're giving it up in one of the, like strongest, depthiest drafts, in recent memory. And that first round pick ends up becoming Jeff Carter. One of those dudes still playing, solid, you count on him 40, 50 points. It's just for you to give up, a guy who could be on your team for 6 to 8 seasons, like Carter was initially for the Flyers, to get 3 seasons of Langkow and only 1 playoff year. And I think he got like a goal, maybe 2 goals, something like that in that 1 season. The trade-off's just not worth it. So teams started getting, these players started getting healthier. We could take care of them better. We started to learn how to draft and develop, and we learned the value of first-round picks. And Langkow, okay, not worthy of this first-round trade. So, Phoenix, you are the big losers in this draft.
Yeah, you wonder, with the trades, what is different for the Coyotes? So we can't blame the scouting department on that, but then to come up with nothing, no games played out of who does get picked up.
Well, it's like you're going to talk to that scouting department and be like, what's coming up in 2003 for us to give up a first-round pick in this draft? And they're like, Langkow is going to be better than anything we could get in the first round. So it's just like, what? So I don't know. They go hand in hand. That's why I'm still giving them an F. But
all right,
I think we pretty much got it, Matt. So let's try and help some teams out. You ready?
I'm ready. I got that list down at the bottom of the notes there. Who went first?
I think you went first last time.
Did I? All right.
Yeah. The first pick was Marc-Andre Fleury for Pittsburgh. And my God, there's so many good forwards and defensemen, but I mean, he did get Pittsburgh a cup, and he got to watch Murray win a cup from the bench. You know what? Give me Fleury again. We try to keep this a little consistent. If they took a goalie first, that means they wanted a goalie. They needed a goalie. This was in that, what was that, 3-year run, right? Where they got Crosby, Malkin, Fleury, when we started to get suspicious of this whole lottery system.
Yeah.
How are we hooking up Pittsburgh like this? It's just bullshit. But I mean, they kind of have that forward plan already. Let's get somebody in the net. Let's get a guy who actually won a Stanley Cup. A guy who was on the bench for another Stanley Cup or 2. He is magical. You can't be upset about that. You won with him. I'm giving them the first pick to Pittsburgh. They're doing it again, man.
Nice. All right. So
even if it did come at the Red Wings' expense.
I mean, yeah, you kind of look at how Pittsburgh's future, like we can't change the past. They're going to suck. They're going to get to this point where they're almost going to be moving out of Pittsburgh, which is insane. And then they go Marc-Andre Fleury, Malkin, Crosby. All of that can still line up if we don't change anything. So why would we? It just makes too much sense. But even with that being said, and the Carolina Hurricanes coming up, and Eric Stahl making the difference he's going to make for the Hurricanes, I feel like the way that I set up my love for this player earlier in our discussion, it would be so stupid
I know it's gonna
of
be.
me to not take him at number 2. It's Patrice Bergeron is going number 2. Eric Stahl is not one to to sneeze at in regards to his defensive abilities. But I'm really sitting here and I'm saying I value a two-way forward more than anything, and I'm saying the number 1 player I would have on my team is Pavel Datsyuk. So if I'm saying the number 2 guy as a defensive forward or a two-way forward and gets you some points is Patrice Bergeron, why would I take anybody else? Number 2, going to the Carolina Hurricanes, Patrice Bergeron.
Solid pick, Matt.
Make it nice and easy for you at number 3.
I know it. So, what's more, 400 or 797?
I think you're overthinking it. I think this is way easier than drafting.
I mean, you're getting a guy who he built California. He put the entire state on his back, much like his governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Matt, give me Corey Perry stepping in. He's going to help out the Florida Panthers here. They wanted a right wing. We're giving them a franchise cornerstone here in Perry.
It's
I heard some. Was that some jeering and
yeah.
boos? What was that over there,
Yeah,
man?
it was so easy. It was lined up for you. You had another franchise player that could have stepped in there for Florida. All right, so officially you are taking Corey Perry, and what you're doing there is lining up the wingers that are being drafted.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if Florida was looking for a right winger, if they were just going. I mean, they're in the top 3. They might just be looking for the best guy available. One thing of note here is just the picks that were moved around, because Florida had the number 1 and Pittsburgh traded to get the number 1. Florida probably thinking with the system they already had and the goaltenders they had set up, they're definitely not going to take a goalie, or else they're not trading around that first pick, because that did happen on draft day, that pick. So I'm taking number 4, Columbus Blue Jackets, picking up a winger. Again, we know where the Columbus Blue Jackets stand. We're drafting them in the top of this draft year after year since they've come into the league. So I think we just got to build up this team and get some guys that are going to get some points for the Blue Jackets. So hasn't been taken yet. Eric Stahl going at number 4. Nice and easy for me. Now you got number 5 and Buffalo Sabres.
Well, you son of a. You know what? In this bizarro world, Matt, I'm gonna say that the Ducks are done. They had their one season, because Getzlaff is getting picked here, Matt. Number 5, Buffalo. They took Vanek, who had a cup of coffee with the Red Wings. And we also got to use him as a trade piece one year. They did get we're gonna defer. You've talked me. We're gonna deter. You've talked me out of this positional consistency. I mean, Ryan, beautiful man. He's right up there with, not quite at the defensively, maybe not at the Bergeron Datsuk level, but still up there for Selke voting. Dude gets a lot of points. His apex was 91 in that 08-09 season. You get a again another cornerstone. It's really hard to screw up this draft unless you're Phoenix. So at number 5, give me the Ducks' other cornerstone here, Matt. That gets you to number 6. Who originally the Sharks took Milan Michalek.
Well, Mike, I'm gonna have some fun.
Shout out to Braveheart, by the way. Go ahead.
I'm gonna have some fun here because I know. Okay, so Michalek comes in as a right winger, but I just there's so many great defensemen that were taken in this draft. I feel like if San Jose knew what was coming, that they would make this change too. And there's still some great wingers that they could take, but I think we saw some huge dips from one of the guys I'm looking at right now in the last few years, especially when he made his move over to Minnesota. So I think I'm gonna do something where the San Jose Sharks just get to bring a guy home a little bit sooner, and he's actually moving from Minnesota to San Jose. Mike Brent Burns is being drafted by the San Jose Sharks.
Yeah,
he's gonna go.
I like it.
He's gonna have an opportunity to become a Good Boy Award winner in our weird reality.
Very important distinction. You don't want to miss out on being a good boy.
So here's. Now you've got number 7 in the Nashville Predators. Looks like we're finally doing some draft picks that are filling holes.
I mean, originally the Predators took Ryan Suter. Man, you almost got to talk me out of picking him again, because I mean, at this point you could either take him. You got Shea Weber. You got the Phanoofs of the world. You got the Dustin Bufflins. Seabrook. I think this is one of those picks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just like the Penguins. I think you can give them A-OK. For point share, he did so good he was almost a goalie. Because we talk about how that point share statistic is a little flawed in the way it's weighted so heavily for goaltenders. But Suter, you know what? I think you're just going to die in Nashville. That's it, man. I can't move him. No, we don't have any Norris victories for him, but he's a top 10 defenseman there for a couple years in a row. Career high in points. Let's see, he had a couple 51 bombs in there. He's still playing solid, up to this season. If you're going to get that kind of longevity, you're going to get that kind of consistency. He's again on pace to get 50 points this season, the shortened one for COVID. I think Nashville, I think they've done good. I think they've done good with Ryan. So they're gonna sit tight. Bravo to their scouting department.
All right. Well, you're talking point share, so I'm going to play the same game then with the Atlanta Thrashers, who also took a defenseman. And man, Mike, if we were managing the Atlanta Thrashers right now, like if you go back in time, they have Zetterberg. They traded for Robert Lang and Todd Bertuzzi a few years ago.
Now they're still drafting in the top 10.
Yeah, no, I mean, we've built like one of the greatest teams of all time. But
what a dynasty we've built in Atlanta. Now, I love it.
what they did end up drafting with Braden Coburn, he's not a Hall of Famer. It actually wasn't a huge miss when we look at all of the first round draft picks that we've been talking about for the last few years. It's good to get a first round pick to play some hockey games. That's at this point what we're seeing is means a lot. But I'm gonna go to your point share strategy, and I'm gonna take a guy who's ranked higher than Ryan Suter, and that's Mr. Shea Weber. He hasn't been drafted, right? Okay, your hesitation.
Oh, he is not?
All right, yeah, Shea Weber is headed on over to the Atlanta Thrashers. Mike, we've built a powerhouse in Atlanta. I wish that we could get the DeLorean revved up, hit that 88 miles an hour, and head on down to Atlanta because we're going to be GMs for life down there. But
we've talked about the Selke defensemen, defensive forwards here. Norris's. This is the first guy we've seen get nominated and actually win this award, man. I don't know how it's just kind of very vaguely been peppered in, but Matt, you're picking a former Messier award winner for leadership. And you talk about, a team that already had Zetterberg on it. Now they're getting the Messier award winner of 2015 and 16. My God, there's going to be some inspirational speeches in that locker room. I'm really jealous of the Atlanta Thrashers. Let me tell you. So Matt, that moves us. We go to Calgary. They initially took Dion Phaneuf, a guy I think both of us always picked up in the NHL video game. It was always fun to pronounce his name. It's going to be really tough here to move away from Phaneuf. I don't, because I already took Andre Fleury, staying at 1 with Pittsburgh. I took Suter, staying in Nashville at 7. It's just. Weber was going to be my boy. We're gonna improve that just a smidge. You know what? We're gonna do it again. Staying put. Calgary did. I don't think they should have been screwing around with the Corey Crawfords or the Seabrooks, the Jeff Carters who got a quick nod in this episode. The Vaneks. I don't want him. I like watching him float around. I don't want him to be recognized early in his career and, maybe stay in Calgary. I want him to bounce around the league like one of those Super Balls you buy at the mall. Give me Dion Phaneuf, man. That 6'4" motherfucker.
You could have had a giant.
No, give me Phaneuf. We're getting a defenseman. Don't you dare talk me out of this. I'm already committed. He came out of the gates red hot, man. Coming in the 506. You get a guy getting 50, 60-point seasons, man. Look at that. He was the Lidstrom of Calgary. How about that?
Hey, did we screw up and not take Getzlaf?
No, I took him.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah. You don't want to screw up and not. No, I plucked both the Anaheim Cornerstones. Cool. I had Perry and Getzlaf.
Well,
so I'm allowed to take the Lidstrom of Calgary here.
Well, this is as easy as it gets.
Don't make me feel bad about this.
This is as easy as it gets for me drafting for the Canadians because I get to match winger for winger, and a huge upgrade. Not that Montreal does love their Kostitsyn, but pick up a guy that's. We talked about one half of this pickup, so the career changed once we talked about Ryan Suter, and now the other part of this was Zach Parise moving over to Minnesota.
The other bell of the ball.
But who knows what happens, especially with the New Jersey Devils, who used Parise to get to the Stanley Cup. But who knows what happens with Montreal, and if that relationship gets a little bit better, coming to a hockey market that never dies, considering we've seen some terrible years from Montreal, and man, they're still jam-packing that stadium, but they're going to have a superstar for a little bit to cheer for, because Zach Parise is going over to Montreal.
Do you think that, because, that was, he was the bell of the ball when, the Red Wings were emptying out, getting cap space to sign this guy?
Yeah.
God, was that the year Lidstrom left, and was that 2012? So we just had all this empty space. We're going to have a new top defenseman. We're going to have a new forward here at Parise. And he just wanted to go home to Minnesota. Do you think that Montreal's, hockey fanaticism would be enough in this fantasy world to keep him there? Or would it kind of be the same situation where he leaves for Minnesota after that, first big contract?
Well, I think at this point, kind of looking at the Canadiens, and they're gonna have shored up goaltending, right, at this point. But now you get to ask the question. We even talked about Yaroslav Halak going for Montreal in this season, but you're talking about a guy in 2009 and 2010 that racked up 82 points. The year before was 94 points. So this is a guy that gives you a lot of offense. Is getting Hart consideration. So I just. Maybe it's worth it, because you don't always get a guy that's going to rack up 94 points for you in 82 games. So have that for as long as you can. A lot of that has to deal with your team surrounding, your 94-point production seasons. But I don't know. At that point, have a couple superstars on your team. I kind of would really like to see what that team would look like. Zach Parise, Carey Price, PK Subban. That'd be fun for a couple of seasons. And then, of course, it's all going to break up and go to hell, because you got to pay Carey Price so much money. Maybe his contract isn't so big, because they're going to say, well, look, Carey, you're doing fine, but a lot of this has to do with our offense that's doing fantastic, so we can't give you as much money. You got to make sure that we have some balance. So maybe that even helps out Montreal. But in any case,
I'd say too, it was more of a, when he didn't pick the Red Wings, it was more of a symbolic gesture that that era was over. That we couldn't just buy the best free agents on the market anymore.
Yeah.
And I know that. You got to kind of say it with a grain of salt because of how bad we've been, not even competitive hockey the past couple of years. But at least with, what you're choosing to do for Montreal, the Devils got all his best seasons. 3 of his, top 4 seasons were all, at the start of his career when he was, 27 and younger. And since then, he hasn't quite been able to, get to that point where he's playing every single game. He starts his career 81, 82, 81, 82, 81. And his last season was 82 with the Devils, and he's, he hasn't been able to stay, as healthy in Minnesota. He hasn't been able to get the points because he hasn't been able to stay on the ice. So I think that's a really, really good pick for number 10. So hats off to you, man.
Thanks. All I needed was my crystal ball. Good old hindsight. All right, so basically, how this all always rounds up is that's our ranking of the top 10 guys mixed with some players getting drafted where the teams may have been looking for holes to fill that won't be filled for a couple years. I don't know. We do our best to strategize this, but that's the 2003 draft. Man, we went on forever. There's no way this is going to fit on IGTV, so I'm going to have some snippet to do. But everybody, thanks for tuning in. Please head on over to IGTV and or actually just go to our Instagram, brothers_of_discussion, so you can keep track of all of our new episodes for both this and our pro wrestling show. We have our YouTube channel, of course, Brothers of Discussion. We do the same thing there, posting those episodes, and it's at BOD Podcast on Twitter for pro wrestling, at BOD Hockey for our hockey show, but find the hub, bodpodcast.com and brothersofdiscussion.com. And as always, if you can subscribe, subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts for both shows. If you are a fan, it really does help out the show and the ranking and our visibility, so we greatly appreciate it. Head on over, and thanks for checking us out, and everybody, have a good one.
Say bye to Wilford Brimley.
Hi everybody, this is Matt Klink of the Brothers of Discussion, reminding you that you can find the Brothers of Discussion at bodpodcast.com, brothersofdiscussion.com. Find us on Twitter at bodpodcast, and of course we are bringing you content every Thursday, if not during every Monday Night Raw, every NXT show, every AEW Dynamite, every SmackDown, every pay-per-view, every major show happening in the United States. The Brothers of Discussion are covering it, so if you want good wrestling coverage, come to the Brothers of Discussion. Thanks, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Discussion 5. Can't thank you enough. But to try to give back, we're here to tell you about another cool hockey contest that the Hockey Podcast Network and the Discussion 5 are very proud to tell you about. If you are interested in walking away with a $175 Cool Hockey gift card, you've got to listen up. Because if you buy a jersey from coolhockey.com before June 1st, so from the moment you hear this till June 1st, you will be entered to win a $175 Cool Hockey gift card. Now, once you make that purchase, your name is automatically entered, and it has to be a jersey purchase to be entered. All you have to do is go to coolhockey.com/THPN. And you know what? Mother's Day's coming up. So you go ahead and get your mom that hockey jersey that she's always wanted. And now you're entered for the Cool Hockey gift card contest. Now, a couple little snippets here. If we get 10 jerseys sold by May 15th, this sucker's going to turn into a $200 gift card. That's right. So you want to share with your friends and your buddies what's going on here. Now, make sure you also use the promo code THPN to get 30% off the hockey jersey that you're purchasing. So just to run this down one more time, we've got coolhockey.com/THPN is the location you want to go to run this contest and buy your next hockey jersey. Get your mom a hockey jersey for Mother's Day, and then you'll be entered to win a $175 Cool Hockey gift card to give to your dad for Father's Day.